Should Mark Jackson get a second chance in the NBA? Yes. Should it be in DC? Maybe. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So everybody, I'm going to get into a little rant at first, but the question is tonight, guys, should Mark Jackson get another shot at being a head coach in the NBA? Yes. Should it be in DC? Maybe, but we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to get into my rant and why he should be a head coach again in the NBA. Then I'm going to look at the pros and cons of what him being the head coach in DC would provide for the organization. And we're also going to take a look at JJ Redick. Should he be a candidate? And who's left in the coaching search? Which teams need a coach? Which teams have hired a coach? And where are we at as far as the Washington Wizards in our search for our next head coach? So let's get into it. Mark Jackson, former NBA point guard for the Knicks and amongst other teams, former NBA analyst, former head coach in Golden State. Obviously, look, the big question when it comes to Mark Jackson is he blackballed from being a head coach? And a lot of arrows, and a lot of people say yes. And I've done a lot of research. I've really studied it. I've got into it and looked at many reasons. And the biggest reason I can see is, if you look at his time in Golden State, he is the architect of building up the Golden State Warriors. Now, Steve Kerr, you can't take away anything from Steve Kerr with his basketball knowledge. Obviously, him being a former player playing with the Chicago Bulls amongst other teams. He has ended up being a really good coach in Golden State, so you can't take anything away from Steve Kerr. But Mark Jackson built the Golden State Warriors, and it was Mark Jackson himself who said that Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson are going to be a formidable backcourt, and that was before everything started to happen. So he definitely saw that before it happened, and like I said, he designed the blueprint of how the Golden State Warriors were built. Very player friendly coach. He called him a player's coach. Now, the biggest thing that I guess kind of rubbed people the wrong way was he was a religious guy. And, let me start by saying this, okay? I'm going to go ahead and speak not only on the behalf of Locked On Wizards, but I'm going to go ahead and speak on behalf of the Locked On Podcast Network. Obviously, we do not condone any hate at all when it comes to race or skin color, your religion, your creed, your sexuality, nothing. There's no hate here on Locked On Podcast Network, man. We are all about sports. We're all about, everybody included. So let me start by saying that. But I am also a big supporter of the freedom of speech. But when you work for a private company, when you work for certain jobs, people don't realize that you go by the rules of the business, man. So that's one component of it. So looking at his time in Golden State, a lot of, they say that he's a very religious guy. Now, and this comes from several networks. I looked at a couple of podcasts from former players. One was the Breakfast Club. I looked at Andre Iguodala talking about the situation. He was saying that, very religious guy. Even though a lot of guys on the team were God-fearing, they went to church, but he made comments, and apparently there were employees of the Golden State Warriors who were homosexual. And like I said, I got no problem with that. Look, this is sports, but looking at the situation with Mark Jackson, he made disparaging comments that were deemed homophobic. And there's a big reason why he was let go. And from what I've researched, okay, and subsequently blackballed. Okay, let's get into the rant, shall we? Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I get it. Hate has no place in sports. Hate has no place anywhere, man. Regardless of his religion, your sexuality, your skin color, nothing, man. Even, special needs people, there should be no hate. But looking at Mark Jackson, okay, and looking at the rules, I'm going to look at this from the lens of the rules of the NBA, not so much in society or anything else. I'm looking at this argument through the lens of the laws of the NBA, right? And number one, okay, fair enough. He made anti-homosexual comments, right? And obviously they were wrong. I mean, you know, I get it. I'm a God-fearing man. I'm wearing a cross my neck. But saying that, being a follower of Christ, and I doesn't mean that I have to judge other people. And that's just my personality. That's my opinion. But here's the thing: if you can beat your wife, why can't Mark Jackson be a coach again? If you can beat your wife and still be in the league, what are we talking about? If you can bring a gun into the locker room of an NBA arena in a city that has clear laws that should tell you cannot carry a firearm, you know, why can't Mark Jackson be in the NBA? And that's my opinion. I mean, if you could do all these different things, you've seen so many different situations. Now, look at the situation, Kevin Porter. He's not currently in the NBA, so you can't use the argument with him. But Miles Bridges, and like I said, I've been a big proponent for second chances. You know, me and Ed this last couple of years together, man, we have looked at every situation, whether it's Kevin Porter, whether it was Kai Jones, whether it was Miles Bridges. We looked at every situation. I said, look, everybody makes mistakes, and while you cannot condone anything, especially when it comes to spousal abuse and anything like that, you need to be held to the law, whether you're an NBA player or not. And I stand behind that. But saying that, if Miles, and then look, this is no shade on Miles Bridges, the Charlotte Hornets, but you know, or Kai Jones dealing with his mental health issues. But here's the thing: if you can beat your wife, you should be allowed in the NBA as a coach. Looking at Mark Jackson, it is. I kind of caught myself. If you can beat your wife and still be in the NBA, you should still be allowed to coach in the NBA if you're Mark Jackson, in my opinion. And I get it. You know, the comments, they were definitely the wrong thing to say. But, you know, looking at the NBA in the landscape of the NBA, if you could throw a ball in the crowd and hit a lady in the face, why can't Mark Jackson be in the NBA? And that's what I'm saying. We got to, and that's where I'm kind of going with this, guys, is that, you know, we live in a society where, you know, there was a time where we could all chat it up, whether it's sports, politics, whatever. And we may have different views, but we can still, at the end, chop it up and be friends at the end of the conversation. Now we tend to, you know, we sit in our groups, and then whoever's not with us is against us. We don't look at the big picture of everything. You know what I mean? And obviously being anti anything is wrong, man. But I mean, but if you're gonna allow somebody who beats your wife to continue to play in the NBA, you should let Mark Jackson coach. Because again, he's shown that he can coach at a high level in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors were created by him. Now, Steve Kerr came in, did a good job, got him to where they need to be. But Mark Jackson showed he can be a coach in the NBA. So that I'm looking at this purely from a sports standpoint. That if you're going to be able to break the law in other ways, because hate it or love it, what he said obviously was wrong. But did he break the law? No, he didn't. He didn't break the law. That was his opinion, and that was his opinion. Now it's wrong, and like I said, you can have your own opinion, but you know you still got to be accountable, especially when you work for a network, especially when you work for an organization. You still have to be accountable. So you can't just roll with the first speech argument, because yeah, I believe in protecting free speech, but within reason, right? You know, when you work for a company, people forget you don't have that freedoms, man. There are rules in place. So he broke the rules of the organization by making anti-homosexual comments. So, but I mean, should he get another chance? Absolutely. And that is my rant, is that we cannot pick and choose in the NBA what rules we want to enforce. We can't pick and choose in the NBA who we're going to enforce rules on. You know, if Patrick Beverley is going to throw a ball into the crowd and hit a lady in the face, I mean, what are we talking about? You know, there's been many situations in the NBA where there's been issues with guys putting their hands on their wives. I mean, and like I said, they did the time. They did the crime. They did the time. I'm not here to judge anybody, especially in looking at Miles Bridges or anybody else, man. I mean, but looking at Lamar Odom, if you can do drugs in the NBA and still play, what are we talking about right now? And we have to. So yes, I do believe that Mark Jackson should get another chance as a head coach in the NBA, because again, you got to set a stand in the NBA. And it goes for everybody, regardless if you're a superstar down to the last guy on the bench on the worst daggone team. Everybody has to be held to a standard. And I get it, superstars get their own privileges, and they're the face of the league and all this. But come on, man. We're not talking about being the face of the league. We're talking about somebody in longevity, somebody's career, somebody's ability to make money. And yes, again, I'm not condoning what he said at all. And like I said, Locked On Wizards, Locked On Podcast. Look, we don't stand for any of that, man. There's no hate. There should be no hate. You know what I mean? But here's the thing: we're looking in the lens through the NBA, man. It's like, you can't allow one thing and not the other. You can't blackball this guy for making comments. We got guys in the league now that you can have your own opinion. If you think the earth is flat, fair enough. You know what I mean? But then, looking at, all right, if you're going to hold Mark Jackson accountable for that, then there should have been, Kyrie Irving should have been held accountable for clicking on a like on an anti-Semitic link. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. You can't pick and choose who you want to enforce the rules on, man. Mark Jackson has showed that he can coach, and he definitely should be a coach again. So, like I said, I don't condone any hate on any level, man. No, not at all. And I was very careful how I kind of came at the subject, man, because it's controversial. It kind of reminds me of the time I did the video on what's his name, Kevin Porter Jr. And it's very controversial. And like I said, I come to this in the perspective as, I believe in love. I believe in no hate for anybody else, man. I try to love everybody, man. Look, I come from a family. I'm biracial, man. I come from a German mother from West Virginia, a Nigerian father from Virginia. I mean, I've got one kid who is special needs, and I have one kid who is actually a homosexual. So I've seen every different parts of society, man. So, look, at the end of the day, it's all love. You know what I mean? But looking at the sports side of everything, right? You cannot enforce rules on some people and not on others, man. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm coming from. Mark Jackson should be a coach in the NBA, and we need to go ahead and stop the madness. He needs to be a coach. Now, next, we're going to talk about, should he be a coach in DC? And if so, what pros and cons does he bring to the nation's cap? But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. So, wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investments in retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend your entire portfolio with confidence, right? So for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, y'all. And it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the right insight to look at the wealth in its entirety. So with a community with over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. So for comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So let's get into it, everybody. So we already talked about my rant on Mark Jackson, whether he should be a coach in the NBA, and I said yes. I mean, like I said, what he said has no place in this world, but there are infractions in the NBA that if you're going to allow that to happen, you should allow him to be in the NBA. And that's all I'm saying, y'all. So look, me personally, I do not condone any of that. Y'all know me personally, man, So, all right, guys. So let's get into it. If he should be an option in DC, what does he bring as far as pros and cons? Number one, let's look at the pros. Look, he knows how to deal with a rebuild. He was with the Golden State Warriors very early in the process of rebuilding that team, with drafting Stephen Curry, with drafting Klay Thompson, with drafting I said Stephen Curry, right? Draymond Green. He knows how to get into the development part of a rebuild, right? Scouting and development. If you look at the staff already with David Vanderpool, with Brian Keefe, obviously both of them are candidates for the head coaching position. But Mark Jackson showed that he could do this at a high level, man. He called the Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson backcourt. They said that backcourt is going to be special, and that's before anything went down. So, he brings that. He brings a standard, which we said this time and time again, right? That the next head coach needs to solidify a standard, set a standard. A culture standpoint. If you look at Mark Jackson, man, yes, I get it. He used, I guess, to a certain degree, he used spirituality to kind of unite his guys. Now, I get it. Some people aren't religious. They're going to say, well, what if you're not religious? Well, there's other coaches that brought other spiritual matters into getting his team mentally and physically ready for the game. Phil Jackson is the biggest example, right? He brought Zen Buddhism into the Chicago Bulls and how they got themselves mentally ready, right? He brought things like yoga. He brought things like meditation. He brought things like Native American spirituality. These are things that that Phil Jackson brought into the equation when it came to the Chicago Bulls. And we don't talk about the mental side of basketball as opposed to the physical side. Where your mind goes, your body follows, right? And if you conquer the mental, you conquer the body. So, I think that, if you look at it through the lens now, should everybody be comfortable if you indeed bring spirituality into preparation for your team? Yeah. You should never, if people aren't comfortable, don't do it. But I thought that he really was a good influence on the young Golden State Warriors team. He set a standard. He was a player's coach, so he definitely got the most out of them. So, like I said, he was the architect of that team. Now, Steve Kerr, nothing against him. Great job. NBA winning player, NBA championship winning coach. Winning championships at both level as a coach and a player. So you can't take anything away from Steve Kerr, man. But Mark Jackson, he can do the job. And he can come in DC. He can set a standard. All right, what are the cons? Obviously, the fallout, right? The fallout of hiring him, considering the comments he made, him being blackballed by the league. That will be something that this organization will have to deal with. Now, is owner Ted Leonsis, is the front office of Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk, are they going to want to have to deal with the fallout? Well, in ways, it might add distractions because, it's definitely going to add distractions because we have an organization here. We have a city where it's a melting pot, right? Not only do we have people from all over the country, all over the world living and working here, which is why it's hard to really get that hometown advantage here for DC sports because it's a melting pot area and a lot of people come from other areas. But you also have a strong LGBTQ community here in DC and other in a lot of religious organizations. So you're dealing with different facets of society here. So there's going to be a fallout. And should there be a fallout? Well, I mean, there's a fallout. There's still a fallout with Miles Bridges. There's still people that he still gets booed. So there's definitely going to be a fallout. Josh Giddey, I was at the Thunder game this year. He got booed every time he literally touched the daggone ball. So, I mean, people are going to hold a grudge. You're going to get a fallout. Definitely from that community as far as the LGBTQ community. So you're definitely gonna get fallout because they're obviously they're not gonna like the comments and they're gonna. So that is the biggest con is that when you hire him, you're gonna have to deal with the fallout. And his X's and O's speak for themselves. His resume speaks for itself. Being an NBA analyst, being a former player, being a head coach. Do I think that he could come in and be a really good head coach in DC? Absolutely. I think he revitalizes his franchise. But you're gonna have to deal with the fallout. And while I'm gonna look at me, y'all. While I'm not in the position to tell anybody how to feel, I do think that he deserves a second chance. So those are the pros and cons. Obviously, what he brings to DC as far as pros is his basketball IQ, his basketball mind. He knows how to coach. He could definitely be a good coach for a rebuilding team. Definitely get this team headed in the right direction. But the cons, and you guys know what it is, that you're gonna deal with the fallout. And people are still going to have a grudge against this guy. And like I said, I'm not in a position to tell anybody how to feel. But, if you can allow Miles Bridges come back, if you can allow Kai Jones come back, if you can allow all these different players to come back, Ryan Rollins, stealing from Target. None against the young brother, man, but he's still in the league. So we can't enforce some rules or laws and not others. You know what I'm saying? You can't get on the guy for making comments, which obviously were very disrespectful comments. But are you telling me that is more strenuous than stealing from a Target? Are you telling me that that's a worse offense than beating up your girlfriend? I mean, is that what we're doing here? Like, give him another opportunity. Whether it's here in DC or whether it's in the NBA, I definitely think he deserves a second chance. So those are the pros and cons of him coming to DC. Now, I definitely think he could be a really good head coach here. But obviously, like I said, you're going to get a fallout. So is it worth it to Ted Leonsis to make that move? Would it be worth it to the front office? Would the players feel that with him being the head coach, first of all, would they be down for, he's a player's coach, but he definitely is a really in-your-face, a coach that holds a standard. We'll see. So we're going to get into what teams have hired head coaches and which teams, including ours, are still looking for a head coach. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. So, all right. Game off, right? You got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play, right? You've already talked about that, Brandon. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed events or tournaments where you can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. And there's so much more to get, including unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist your vaults. And plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on, Monopoly Go. So, everybody, we're going to look at the list of people that had just hired coaches and the people who include the Washington Wizards who still need a head coach. So let's get into it. Let's start with the teams who currently have just hired a coach. Starting with the Charlotte Hornets. They just hired, and I just had it. Lord have mercy. I just had it right. All right, they just hired Charles Lee, who was actually the current. Oh, he is currently the top assistant under Joe Mazzulla up in Boston. So he just got hired as a head coach with the Charlotte Hornets. Now, JJ Redick was a name that was floating around for a little bit. Looking next, the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, they just hired Rudy Fernandez. I'm sorry, Jordy Fernandez. I mean, I should scroll down. Jordy Fernandez, former Kings assistant. So Jordy Fernandez, definitely congrats on that job. Obviously, the previous coach was Kevin Ollie, and then he was replaced by Jacques Vaughn in February. So, no, not bad hires, in my opinion. Brooklyn, you get a really good assistant coach in Jordy Fernandez. And, Charles Lee, you say enough about the coaching branches. Mazzulla, has shown that he can do the job. So, definitely a really good assistant. So, congrats to both of those organizations for finding their next head coaches. So, let's look at some coaching vacancies, including the Washington Wizards, and who best fits them real quick. All right. Frank Vogel is out in Phoenix. So, who are some names that are being floated around for a possible replacement? Easy. Mike Budenholzer right now is a front runner for the job to become the next head coach for the Phoenix Suns. He has emerged as a front runner. So, I think that is a strong possibility that he gets hired in Phoenix because they need a guy who showed he can deal with multiple egos. He's a guy who can definitely take a team like Phoenix and take them over the top. His resume speaks for itself in Milwaukee and Atlanta. So, if you look at the coaching trees, former assistant underneath Greg Popovich, that tells you all you need to know. So, next on the agenda, Los Angeles Lakers. On May 3rd, they just fired, Darvin Ham. So what are some names being floated around? Obviously, there's a couple of names. JJ Redick was a guy who, he hosts a podcast with LeBron James, and he actually interviewed for the Toronto Raptors job in 2023. He was a name that was floated in other organizations, whether it was Charlotte Hornets and the Brooklyn Nets. But that's one guy to look for. Now, looking at JJ Redick, and I was going to bring this up on this episode. JJ Redick, right? Should he get an opportunity? And there's kind of different perspectives when it comes to that. Yes, he's a former NBA player. And a lot of people say that, looking at the lens of an NBA player, they see things a lot of people don't see that weren't players, right? And the argument is a lot of people have the argument where it's like, you can't really analyze or say anything because you weren't a player. Okay, fair enough. And I had this conversation with somebody. I said, okay, and somebody who's former military, okay, when you go into a bookstore and you look at the military history, most of the books are written by people that never served a day in their life in the military, right? Now, there are books that are written by Army veterans or military veterans, but for the most part, they're written by military historians. So if you know ball, you know ball, right? So I'm not going to use the excuse you have to be a player, any of that. I mean, obviously, JJ Redick, he's a former player, so he definitely checks that box. But one thing that to me that is a red flag is he hasn't been an assistant coach. And I would rather see a guy become an assistant coach before I like to see them be a head coach. So I don't think he should be an option in DC for that reason. He knows ball. Obviously he knows ball. Now he's had some comments where it's like, really, bro? But I mean, overall, he does know ball. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to take that away from him, but I would like to see him as an assistant coach before I like to see him be a head coach. So another name we floated for the Lakers, Tyronn Lue. Now, I wouldn't really put too much in Tyronn Lue because he's been known that he wants to stay with the Clippers. Now, the Clippers, that's another subject for another day. Kind of influx right now. Does Paul George leave? Kawhi Leonard's always hurt. Russell Westbrook's on the way out. So would he want to build a team that could potentially be rebuilding? We'll see. But Tyronn Lue, I wouldn't count him out for the Los Angeles Lakers but he's made it known right now that he wants to stay with the Clippers. All right, let's get to the team of the moment. Our team, my team, everybody's team in the DMB, the Washington Wizards. So obviously the previous coach was Brian Keefe, the head coach who replaced Wes Unseld Jr. in January. Names involved with the Wizards. Now, I will say this: it was put out by the organization and by David Aldridge, per the Athletic, that they will officially be doing their interviews next week. So, who is the favorite? I think you guys already know who I'm going to say. I think at this time, hate him or love him, you got to admit that Brian Keefe is the favorite right now. I mean, what he was able to get out of the team, the love he gets from the locker room, the X's and O's, the automatic betterment of this team with him taking over from Wes Unseld Jr. gives him a leg up. I mean, he's got a coach in David Vanderpool, who again is another X's and O's guy, another scouting and development guy. So I think those guys, those two in tandem, would really, really be the beautiful beginning of a good coaching staff, in my opinion. So I think the Brian Keefe right now is the favorite. They're going to definitely go out and interview people, but at this stage, I mean, if you look at how many people have been interviewed, who's been hired, how many names are really still left that are realistic for the Wizards? I don't know. I think Brian Keefe is definitely the headliner. Now, Sam Cassell is another name. Juwan Howard was a name, but who, he was a former player and has connections to the organization, but he is now an assistant coach in Brooklyn. Excuse me, y'all. So there's a few names out there that are floated. Sam Cassell is definitely a guy that should get an opportunity, but Brian Keefe right now is the guy who has a leg up on a head coaching job. So next week, we hopefully we get the news for the new head coach, whether it's going to be Brian Keefe or whoever's going to be next week. So when I get the news, we're going to chop it up like we always do. We're going to celebrate about who's going to be the new and improved head coach, and we're going to go from there. So again, appreciate you guys, man. Like I said, a highly controversial comments, but highly controversial episode. But like I said, I came into this with the lens of somebody who loves everybody, who understands that hate in this world, whether it's in the NBA, in sports, or in this world period, has no place, man. But I also believe in second chances, right? And looking at the laws, the regulations, and the rules of the NBA, you have to enforce you have to enforce with everybody. You can't pick and choose. And I think the NBA has to do better when it comes to Mark Jackson. You're going to allow other people who have done things that are just as bad, if not worse. You have to allow him back in the NBA to be a head coach. So that's where I stand. All right, everybody. Tomorrow night, I am going to do the Washington Wizards all-season preview. So we're going to look at trade scenarios, who could be traded. We're going to look at free agency. I don't see us being very active in free agency. We're going to look at some free agent targets, and we're going to look at the draft. And obviously on Sunday, we will also be going live on Sunday for the NBA draft lottery. So shoot, when number one's called, we're going to be up in here chopping it up. We always do. Also, look out for me and the real Ed Oliver on Bleacher Report on Sunday at 3 o'clock. We're going to be watching and reacting to the NBA draft lottery. So definitely show your support for Locked On Wizards by supporting Bleacher Report. So again, appreciate you guys, man. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think, man. And no matter what your perspective is, I'm very intrigued to know what you guys think, man. Because as you guys know, man, I got love for all y'all, man. So love y'all, man. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys live tomorrow night to start off the weekend right like we always do. You guys have a blessed night. See you guys later. Hail to the Wizards, and peace.